All right, how's it going, everybody? It's been a pretty intense few days. The last couple of nights or mornings, I wake up, I'm totally off planet. I got up an hour and a half ago, and I'm still not on my feet. Anyway, we got to keep on going, right? We got the beautiful Blu-ray young divine feminine Melissa Ford coming on. Hadn't seen her in a while. She's always a pleasure to talk to. So let me get her up here. Let me know if this mic is cracking up. I think we got it worked out. Here we go. Wait. Okay.
You
Can you hear
can
me?
see me? Yes.
What's happening, Melissa?
Hi, how are you?
You're wearing the blue. You're wearing the blue today. It's good to see
I
you.
know.
You look
So good
good.
to see you.
You looked great before, but you look different. I don't know. You look different. You look
Oh, you
like
know what? I was
hmm.
watching your intro and I actually got really emotional because it's almost like the conversations that we had like came flooding back and to
Uh,
see your growth in what you're doing and like your beautiful background and we're like aligned with the colors um,
right.
and then just like that instantaneous reflection of how much I've grown since the last time we talked, which I don't even know when that was, a while ago, but I had
Oh
this like
yeah.
massive heart opening experience and I got a little emotional being like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
so
and I
many.
should say too that somebody sent us. People have been. They people have supported this situation. And so somebody sent us three of these backdrops and a stand for it. I'm in the RV right now, so I can't put the stand up. But anyway, yeah. So thank you for noticing that because it reminded me to say that.
I love it. And it like
Yeah.
gives me Arcturian vibes right now. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, every time I think three times we talked, and every time we talk, we're always aligned. I don't
Hmm.
know. I feel like there's always alignment on all the shows, but sometimes there's a little something different. I don't know. So I don't know if you're like Morgan's, soul daughter or something's going on there because that's a lot of times it's like talking to
I
her,
know.
but a younger version.
That's fair.
So, for some reason I thought you were in the United States, and I went to go check because of daylight savings time yesterday.
Mm,
I went to go check all the times for today because I didn't want there to be any issues, and I realized you were in Toronto.
yes.
So I don't know if you've ever run into Franco Di Nicolo over there, but I think he's in Toronto. I think he is. That's Eastern time, right? So I'm pretty sure that's where he's at, or outside of
No, I
Toronto.
haven't. You'll
Yeah,
have to
he's
like link me to him because I would love to meet
yeah,
kindred spirits in the city for sure.
yeah, and he's been in it for a long time. I mean, he's going to be on today actually, in a few
Oh,
hours. But
that's awesome.
he actually was there at the beginning of Collective Evolution. He was part of that startup. So if you
Oh,
go back to
wow.
Collective Evolution, um into the like if you sort on YouTube oldest to newest on their videos, you'll see a lot of his stuff on there, and the stuff he was
Hmm.
talking about then, of course, like so many people back then, that people didn't really get it all, but now it's all starting to come full circle now. So but
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I remember a lot of the details of talking to you and your transformation. I mean, you've actually transformed like almost like right before our eyes at one point. I remember the one that we had because you really came out. But then you kind
Yeah.
of, you like ebb and flow, which is
Hmm.
good, like you've
Hmm.
come out and said it's so many words before, you'll be like, okay, I'm going to kind of just pull everything in right now, and then you kind of go kind of like quiet, and then you come back, and I think that's actually helpful, I mean,
I
because I've
definitely hermit.
yeah, I mean, I can dig that, because I don't even know I'm not even probably like 40% here right now, but the last few
I was gonna
days.
check in and see like how you've been energetically because this full moon has been like super intense for me,
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
dreams, astral travels, meeting of guides, and trying to like piece it all together and
really.
make sense of things. So I was like, this is really super aligned for me to be here with you talking, just to sort of open up the dialogue and see
Yeah.
what pieces we can put together.
Yeah,
Because I find
that
like
sounds good. Yeah.
I
That
find
sounds
that
really good.
the hermit stage, like for me, like retreating and going within, I don't have a lot of that those sounding boards in my personal like experience and with the people in my environment. So I do so much of the processing by myself, and that's why I can retreat for so long, is because like that process is pretty intense. So I'm
I
happy
know it
to like
is.
share and be like, I don't know what's going on, but maybe you have a piece of the puzzle.
I have my piece, I guess, and I can relate a little bit of Morgan's piece. But other than that, it's all through the shows, and I did 18 shows in 6 days, and yesterday I took off. But I want to say the previous 4 nights, I was pretty much alone. Morgan was doing her thing. I'm doing my thing. We didn't say anything about it. We just kind of went, I'm going this way, you go that way.
Mhm.
And I went through just, a lot of shows, but there was, to your point, and I can't, and maybe I'll pick some of it up as I'm talking to you, because I picked some up when I was talking to Judith Kuzel yesterday, or the day before. So in dream state, what we call sleep state, I have been, I don't even know, man. It's just been like these lucid dreams. Some I remember, some I don't, like really intense. Yeah, there was councils. Last night there was councils. But when Morgan and I laid down together last night and connected, I something's been happening. So normally, really almost all the time, 99% of the time, she's the transmitter. So we'll lay down and, sometimes I'll see things, sometimes I won't. I'll see it through her basically. But what's been happening is before she starts talking, it all starts coming in, right? And so she'll start saying stuff, and I'm like, okay, I got this. I just got this a minute ago. But it's been happening so much. I got to believe it's not just regulated to us. I think that there's a really a higher telepathic collective that is become more available, or we've become more receptive to it. So I don't know if you've experienced any of that, because I know in your
Mhm.
situation you're doing a lot of stuff in the field. When I say in the field, like, off the net, you talk
Mhm.
about the work environment you've had, and how you injected this into the work environment, and you're all woo woo, and they're like, oh my god, she's kind of different, but they're also like
Yeah.
noticing you. And so I don't know if the telepathy has been evident to you, like in your work environment and anywhere else with other people, even if they're not in the same area. I don't How's it gone for you?
Yeah, I definitely have been feeling that. I don't know if it's the Pisces season that is amplifying our psychic gifts and
Mm.
that telepathic connection. But I've definitely been feeling that and experiencing that, where someone will say actually, I'll give you an example from today. So I'm like writing some things out, sort of getting my head aligned to bring forth the clearest messages for today and what I'd like to maybe unfold and unravel. And I'm writing the word and I'm listening to music, and it will say the word that I'm writing as I'm writing it. And that happened like 3 or 4 times just before getting on here. And I was like, really? Like, it's just that
Yeah,
synchronistic like experience where you're picking up on stuff, but
I
definitely with
know.
people.
Yeah.
And it's been, yeah, the dream state has been so active every single night, and it's causing me to feel pretty exhausted. I don't know about you, but I'm needing
Yes.
to like have naps in the middle of the day, which I almost never have. Like, I just don't usually feel the need, but lately I'm like so drained and doing so much work, and I actually have been feeling like dream hopping is happening. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that's been happening on your end, where I'm like popping into other people's experiences and like watching it like a fly on the wall,
Mm.
um, and vice versa. Like, people are coming to me and we're exchanging information. And actually, in my work environment, my boss, or the owner of the company, I have a very strong connection with him on the astral plane, and I'm actually like teaching him and guiding him
Really?
on that level as well. So
Is he aware of it as a
he
human? Is
he's been expanding really fast.
Yeah.
And so I give him as much information as I can, and he's been really open and receptive to it. He doesn't always understand or can grasp it, but he's at least open to the information.
Yeah.
And that's been really powerful to explore that with him. I had a really awesome experience not long ago where I said, you and your wife were crystal shopping, and you were going for the crystals that were really big, and your wife was going for the smaller ones and creating a medicine bag. And before I actually, like, I wrote that down because I woke up in the middle of the night. I didn't want to lose it. I wrote it down. And then in the morning, I went to message him that, and he actually had messaged me first. And I read the message saying, you know, my wife is opening up to spirituality, and she said that she might want to go and get some crystals. So I
Yeah.
just sent him a screenshot of the notes that I
Oh
wrote in the middle of
shit.
the night and
Uh,
sent that to him and was like, I already know.
yeah. Wow, you just said
So,
like three things. One, and other people acknowledge it too. So, the naps, like over this 4 or 5 day period, usually in between shows, as soon as the show's over, I download it, upload it to YouTube, click a button, and then I'll go do something, for an hour. But man, these last 4 or 5 days, I would like almost be like when you wake up, like when waking up lately, I've been like you, and I've just like even today, I'm still feeling it. It's been almost 2 hours, and I mean, I'm like just like off planet. But after the shows, and sometimes even during the shows, you start to get that heavy drowsiness, and I would lay down and I'd put my alarm on, and the next thing I know, my alarm's going off. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, like, seems like 5 minutes, but 2 days ago,
oh
in the
yeah.
middle of the day, I did 4 shows, and I think it was after the second show or third show, I laid down. I'd already laid down twice in between shows. And I'm like, what is going on? And I'm laying there, and the next thing I know, I felt I got up out of bed. In this RV, there's a bed, so I it's on the other side here. So I got up out of the bed, my feet hit the ground, and then I opened my eyes, and I was in the bed. I'm like, what? So I closed my eyes, and then I'm back on, and I could hear Morgan calling me, and I had my feet on the ground, and I start to take a step, and I got scared, and I opened my eyes, and I'm on the bed again. And this went on for like 10 minutes. It was like an out of body experience. And I've had those before. And I thought, wow, what is this? I mean, this is like something's bleeding over, and I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting out of this last few days, because it's happened before. Where you have a lot of energy come in, you wake up, you're really off planet, you're tired, you're almost like you just want to, my head's all heavy.
Hmm.
And what I'm thinking is that we're starting to mesh those two together, because it's just like, I can't put my finger on it all the time, other than lucid dreams, or like the things that you're talking about, where you wake
Hmm.
up and you remember something, you write it down. But there seems to be a lot of connectivity, and you said it a minute ago, there seems to be a lot of sharing of information, whether it be in the astrals or not. So I think this is all a really good sign.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I actually had that I want to say the last 4 days as well, where it was like that really heavy feeling
Hmm.
where I don't know, it's so hard to put into words and to describe it, but it's like, yeah, just a real heaviness where it's like, if I don't lay down like immediately,
Yeah.
I will just pass out. And I
Yeah.
got that. I was in public, and it wasn't accessible to me at that time. But the second I got home, I like laid down, passed out for like 3 hours. Kyle was like you were out. He was like, I
Yeah.
was making noise and you were just like done.
Yeah.
So it feels like different than a download, but
Hmm.
similar. Like I've experienced that before, where it's like to process that message that's coming through, but it feels like, yeah, maybe a blurring. That's a good way to put it, like a bleeding of information, bleeding of
Yeah.
timelines, or I
Yeah,
don't know.
to me it seems like I don't know, like the bodies, and so I had the experience of coming out of the body, and it very but beyond lucid. I mean, it was as real as me talking to you right here. And then I would close my eyes, and or the opposite, I open my eyes and I'm in the bed. And I
Hmm.
and because when you get out of the bed, you have to put your arm your hand on the wall to pull yourself up because it's kind of tucked back, and then I put my other one up on the cabinet and on one of the knobs, and
Yeah.
I did it like 3 times, you know,
And
and
you're
I'm like,
like, how
what?
did I get here? It's like there's
Yeah,
like a glitch. Like I want to say
yeah,
like it feels like a glitch and that you're like
yeah,
missing like just a moment, just a little like fragment of time where it just skips it. Like
yeah.
it's felt like that to me recently.
Yeah, that's what,
Very
yeah.
bizarre.
And I think too, what's happening is, like, you hear people say, well, make you sure you drink plenty of water, be out in nature and respect your body if it needs to go down. To me, these aren't like, oh, I need to take a nap because I've got a lot to do today, or I need to pace myself. This isn't like that. This is just like comes in and whoom, and you're just like out. And I think I would think that what we're doing is well, we're transforming,
Mm-hmm.
we're integrating. And one of the reasons I know that, this might be too much information, but I have noticed
Never.
since last year when I was in Hawaii, like a little bit before the last time we talked, that when I would get up in the morning, when I urinated, there was something happening. Like there would be some almost like a what do you call it, a UTI where it burns,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but there would also be an odor, right? I'm like, what's
Mm-hmm.
going on here, man? But what I've noticed is that that in the mornings it's really, it's like a metal. And to me, and my body's telling me, you're burning old DNA, you're burning stuff off because it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen during the day. And I drink lots of water.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm
I
happy that you said that because I've had a similar experience, and the way that I've interpreted or understood it is that yeah, it's a clearing, it's a purging, it's a releasing. I know that I have a lot stored in my sacral chakra, and
Mhm.
that would typically be the area that's
Yeah.
affected. And so yeah, I'd be experiencing similar things, and I'm like, I know I'm clearing, I know I'm purging these
Hmm.
dense energies and things that I'm finally ready to let go of because I can feel my vibration elevating and rising. And it's like,
Yeah.
it feels almost like a yo yo. Maybe that's what it is. It's like that deep need to rest is just your body
Hmm.
on a cellular level being like, we need to recalibrate right now
Yeah.
because the energies have been really, really
I
wild.
said the yo-yo thing like 3 days ago on one of these shows. I said I feel like a yo-yo. And one of the other reasons I know what we're saying is got to be I know it's accurate because several months when I was in Hawaii, I still pretty much, and I'm not advocating any kind of diet or anything like that. Everybody's got to do their own thing, but I was living around the corner from this little place, and when Morgan wasn't there, especially, I'd go get a hot dog or a hamburger, because they had all this food ready. But and I was in what I was ingesting, my body was telling me, you know what, you're making this more difficult, and that odor was stronger, and it would happen
Mm-hmm.
during the day. But now I'm much, I'm taking in stuff that's more compatible. I'm listening to my body, but I can still tell that's what's happening. And then what you
Yeah.
said about the sacral, so the sacral to me has been part of what's been front and center the last 4 or 5 days. Now Morgan said the same thing. We compared notes yesterday, and I had just like off the chart sacral, and also heart. The heart was really the biggest part. But as I
Mm-hmm.
was doing my work, I kept getting all this sacral energy, and I could feel too that what was happening was it was clearing, like like it was just being blown open, and it was pretty intense. I mean, it was really kind of a strong sexual energy. Let me just put it that way. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad I was alone, or I'd have been chasing Morgan all over the house. Yeah.
I wanted to also talk about because I don't really have again like I have my online community which is so amazing, but
Mm,
even though that this experience is very individualistic, like anytime that you and Morgan have shared your experiences of like portals opening and
mm,
these very otherworldly mystical experiences happening, I know that I get so much from that, like just reassurance, like I'm not the only one, I'm not
mm,
going crazy. Like I still have to reassure myself at times, like that my experience is valid, it's real, this is happening for a reason. And one thing that I've noticed is that in past shares with you, I fall back onto the human and I focus heavily on that aspect, um, to make myself smaller
Mm-hmm.
as a way to not be seen
Mm-hmm.
fully in my gifts, but I see this as a real opportunity to share and explore that further. Because again, you as a mirror and as a sounding board, maybe you can help me process this a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So the other day, it's funny because like you were talking about like you close your eyes, you open them, and like there's like a
Yeah.
gap, or you're like, how did I get here? So the other day, I closed my eyes and I kept them closed for maybe 2 seconds, like a little longer than a blink. And I was just standing, like going about my day, nothing um, unusual. I wasn't meditating, but I closed my eyes and I clearly see Anubis. And he turns and he's the Egyptian
I know who
god
he is. I've run
with
into
the
him
dog
several
head.
times. Yeah.
And he was there and he turned and he looked at me and he started to walk towards me, and it was so clear
Mm,
that I got startled. I opened my eyes, like
mm,
I was like, what was that? And this is now the fourth Egyptian god that
mm,
has reached out to me, and I have never seen any other deity. I know that you've mentioned you've seen
mhm,
like
mhm,
Kali and
mhm.
other forms, but I've only experienced ancient Egyptian deities. And I was like, maybe Todd has some insight on this.
I don't know. I can tell you that I went to Sedona in late 2018 for the first time. 2018, yeah, and right before I moved to Hawaii. And so the first day I was there, he came, and there was somebody on the back porch with me. It was late at night, and there was an alley behind the house, like a an easement alley. So it had like tall grass, and I saw this thing shoot across at much faster rate than a dog. And I looked and I saw it, and he told me. He didn't tell me his name at the time, but he said, "I'm an interdimensional being from Sirius." And then the last day I left that trip, the last day I left that trip, yeah, Sirius, right? so, so the last day I left that trip, I was coming home, and I was living on the street, and it was pitch dark, and I was walking down the street, and I heard a dog coming at me, and it came right up to me, and its breath went across my face, and then it took off. But it wasn't a dog; it was him. But
Mm-hmm.
then when Morgan and I went back earlier this year and stayed with Sherilyn, rest in power, uh, we were sitting in the backyard, and they were doing work like a session. They were, we would just get together every night and just hang out. And he came right in my face, and he was like, "What are you going to do?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Are you scared?" I said, "No. I'm not. I've been through enough, and I know who you are." So then he said, "Go back behind the house." And I went behind the house, and there was like a ridge. It wasn't a traditional subdivision. There was like a big space, and there was this animal that you could hear, and the girls could hear it too. And it was going back and forth, and it was bigger than a dog, and you could hear it breathing, almost like a bear.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, "You got to go back there if you're not scared." So I did. And I went back there, and then we merged, and then I went and sat down, and then I heard, "Get up." And I got up again, and all of the dogs, now it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, like all of the dogs in the canyon and the coyotes were yipping and barking. And then Morgan ran up to me and was like,
Wow.
"Oh, I believe you now." But for right. But for me, it's a good sign. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very good sign. And in fact, the first time I ever saw him, it was before Morgan ever came. So it'd been like 2016. I was talking to her on the phone in the old studio. I was laying on the couch, and I watched him run through the house. I said, "Morgan, this dog man just came through the house," and she told me who it was. So
Yeah.
to me, it's a good sign. And then the Egyptian thing, people have been talking about Atlantis coming up a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was Lemuria coming up. But to me, the Egyptian thing has always kind of like been hanging there. And I have heard a few people talk about Osiris and Isis a lot, and Horus a lot. I haven't heard a whole lot about Anubis, but I've heard a few things. So I think it's a good sign. I
Yeah.
don't know what it means, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say the reason why I was like, whoo, shooketh when you said
Mm,
serious is because I pulled cards before getting started just to get a
mm,
general essence or vibe of what today we'd be discussing or talking about. And one of
mm.
the cards that I pulled was Sirius. So
Yeah.
it says messenger, Sirius energy, bringing harmony and balance.
Mm,
The next one is star ancestors, hidden secrets, lost wisdom, look a little deeper. and then perspective, zoom out, common ground. So this
Mm.
is the Sirius messenger card.
Well,
Yeah.
that
I never
pit.
even made that connection, but I do feel like ancient Egypt and my galactic family is very
Mm,
much interconnected. So I've spent the last
yeah,
several years interacting with light beings and understanding my galactic origins with the Pleiades,
Pleiades.
Sirius, Arcturians. But then now I'm being really called on the other end of the spectrum to dig deeper into ancient Egypt and understand maybe some roots that I've laid there. I'm really feeling called to go there actually this year.
Really? So
Hmm.
that's and maybe that's part of the anchoring is the civilizations or the part of our lineage that was actually walking the earth versus coming from the cosmos. So 2 days ago, 2 days ago or 3 days ago in the evening when I was, working on myself, and I don't know if this will help you, but so what I was getting, it was like Sirius to Pleiades, and there was other star family like Arcturian, Andromedan, uh Lyrian, but the primary thing was Sirius, right? And then and they were just feeding me this information. I'm like, why am I hearing all this? And it was Sirius to ultimately Pleiades, Sirius, some other stuff, and then Pleiades, and then from Pleiades it went to um, like the Middle East, and and so I think there was some Egyptian in there, but I found out something a little bit later that I'll bring back up. So then it was the Middle East, and the Essenes to let's see, the Essenes went to the Cathars and Templars, and then to the Celtic Druid type of thing, and it was just showing like this evolution of where there was like this secreted or protected knowledge under the radar that was mostly being stamped out, which had a lot to do with the divine feminine, right? But I did some research on it, and what I found was is that how all the genetics come from Egypt, right? So like, even if you look at like the monarchies, their blood comes from Egypt, like
Mm.
King Tut and stuff like that. So I think the Egyptian thing is a big, big deal, and I know that Morgan's relayed stuff to me over the years in regard to that time period and some memories she has, and then I've had the same thing occasionally as well. But yeah, I think that's a big deal. That whole area, Iraq, they say has a Stargate. The big thing going on with the Israel, of course, and Iran, and
Hmm.
just the whole area. I mean, they don't call it the Holy Land for nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It just feels so, um, well, and it's not linear at all. These experiences happen, but from listening to you, I think what I'm going to take from this is the next time I'm visited is I'm just going to ask a question. I think I get so startled because for me, those types of experiences, while I'm active on the astral plane all the
Mm.
time and receiving channeled messages, I don't actually see them very often. They're sort of few and far between. So when I do see them, I'm so like, oh my God, like, oh, what do I do? I sort of freeze and then I just acknowledge them and then I wake up.
Mm.
But I think
Wow.
next time I need to like pause and just ask, what are
Yeah, I
you
think
here
we
for?
can. I think we can do that. I mean,
Yeah,
I know we can do that. That's one
the
thing.
only um, the only one that has ever said anything to me is Matt, and she said, "I'm a gatekeeper." That's
Mm.
all she said. And I didn't bother asking anything else. I just was like,
So
hold on to the fact that I know this is Matt and she is a gatekeeper and I'm going to bring back that information, but I don't know what to do with it.
yeah. So when you're on in the astrals, or I would say dimensional experiences or interdimensional experiences, are you getting are you retaining the information? Not that it matters because I know that we get it. But
Mhm.
is it involving you personally, or is it collective, or is it both? I
Oh,
mean, does it?
it feels like both. I mean, I've been
Mm,
taught about the platonic solids and
mm,
I've been uh, led out of my body into the heart of the cosmos and felt the oneness of all. And I feel like all of
mm,
these like glimpses, one, it's I think their way of keeping me searching and seeking and going is being like,
mm,
all right, we're gonna throw this breadcrumb your way,
mm-hmm.
and to drop these experiences on you that are so like earth shattering that you have to explore further and to keep going and trusting. But then like yesterday in seeing Anubis and just surrendering and asking that question, remembering like why, I got like flooded with downloads and information and the connectedness of we've always been here, we've been guiding you, and you won't always remember that knowledge and information, but just trust, keep trusting that inkling, that intuition, and that, you know, we're steering you, like we got you. But I don't always retain all of it, but definitely the enough to keep me searching.
Well, it's like a feeling, like people talk about a knowing, but it's like a feeling. And I think with the body, I think the body's the big deal. I think if we were straight light body, like maybe on other planets or whatever other dimensions or timelines, we could retain, uh, and maybe that's what we're headed to, because there's no doubt now, like with what we are talking about earlier, and everything else that's been put out there, our bodies are transforming. And as our bodies transform, like somebody said on the show the other day, our body in the current state it is in right now would not be able to survive on the earth in 5 years, or whatever that time frame is. So, I think that's, it's coming in. It's definitely getting louder. It's definitely more evidentiary. People are knowing it more. I think that's a big part of the awakening. And I just accepted a while back. Like I don't need to know. I just
That's fair.
it's more of the it's more the synchronicities to me. Like that when I was telling you about the thing with Anubis in the canyon at my friend's house. So the next day, I go to do an interview with a really cool chick, Rebecca Magic, in Sedona. Somebody had recommended her, so I went to her house because I was in Sedona and I didn't have it. It just worked out better. And when I get over there, she's got a domesticated black wolf in a cage in her backyard of this house they just moved into. And I look over there and he is like talking to me. I don't understand it, but I can see it in his eyes. He doesn't look ferocious. He's just looking at me like whatever. And I said, wow, what is that? She said, that's a black wolf and his name's Anubis. So
get out of here.
no,
No.
no. So to me, those are the
Wow.
kind of things I really pay attention
Yes.
to.
The
Like,
confirmation.
yeah, because then I know that I'm not crazy. Or
Mm-hmm.
what'll happen a lot, like it happened yesterday, is something will be going on, and then I'll hit two or three things on it on like I'll just turn on YouTube or turn on Facebook just to pass time to the next whatever, and it'll be something like a direct message to me, which is like taken up right where the intel had left off. So you're like, okay,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I get that a lot too. And I guess that's what, yeah, that validation and reassurance. I think that's why I retreat and I hermit so much, is because I get all of that. And I'm like, how do I even begin to share this with somebody? Like, I
I
want
know.
to be a teacher and a guide to help people understand those types of synchronicities, because I find that people are waking up right now, like at such a fast pace. Like in my work environment, for instance, like more than half of the team is now coming to me asking me for guidance and interested in
Really?
seeing me for Reiki sessions. I've worked on a few people from work, and yeah, they're not seeing me as so weird and bizarre. They're like, oh, maybe she was onto something this whole time.
Mm,
So it's hard to sort of like relay and translate that information in a human way to say, trust that inkling,
mhm,
that your
mhm,
heart, because it's such a feeling. But we're so numb in society that this is why people have a hard time building that discernment to understand what is truth for you and how to identify those synchronicities when they're happening, because they're happening all the time.
yeah. So you're saying like half the people now, because I remember talking to you last year, they were accepting of you, but you were kind of
Hmm.
like over here in
But
their
they were like,
world.
okay, yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
now there's definitely like a merging
Wow.
where they're seeing me as, yeah, somebody that they can confide in and open up to
Yeah.
about their experiences with,
Wow.
past loved ones that may be coming to them in dreams, being
Mm,
like, what is this? What does that mean? And it's really nice to know that I've been anchoring in that frequency, and just by staying true to myself, even though I've been perceived as that weirdo for a long
Yeah.
time, that it's now having that ripple effect, which is really awesome. But I
Yeah.
want to go back real quick to something you were saying about the physical form. So this year, I don't like New Year's resolutions, but I do like directions or something to focus me, because I have the
Mm,
tendency to just be spacey and get lost and, nonlinear, feminine.
mm,
And this year I was like, I really only want to focus on forming a healthy relationship with my body and
mm,
learning how to listen to it and treat it well, and to form, the best vessel that I can. And immediately I got sick, and I was like, shit. Sorry for swearing.
no, it's okay.
but but I was like, be careful what you ask for, because I remembered the second that you ask, you will receive it. And in order for me to get to the stage of optimal health, I realized that I was going to be experiencing the decline first, for me
Yeah.
to, one, release and purge all of the thoughts, emotions, feelings, beliefs that are keeping my body at a low frequency, that are keeping me codependent on the bad foods when I feel low vibing. And all of that needed to fall away. So I've been sick actually for like a month and a half, and I'm just finally on the upswing now.
Wow.
So it's interesting. We were talking earlier about purging and releasing from the sacral chakra, and talking about health and vitality and taking care of our vessels, because I feel like this is really the time for us to focus on the physical in order for us to receive those elevated upgrades that are coming in right now and affecting us on a cellular level.
Mm,
So I just wanted
I
to
agree.
mention that, because I
No.
made the connection also with Horus, where I saw him in my dream. I saw him, he presented himself 3 different times. I kind of acknowledged him and then sort of like wandered away, and he presented himself again. I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, oh, after the third time, I'm like, wait, he's trying to get my attention. Okay. He was so ripped. He was jacked. Like, he was super fit. And I just remember being like, this is the most fit person I have ever seen. And then I'm piecing it together slowly but surely. Like, if you look at these gods and goddesses, they are all in optimal physical
Yeah.
condition.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a big key that I'm focusing on this year, is like moving my body, like anchoring it in further into the physical and not getting stuck up here, which I can at times.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think that's going to be it's going to be the same type of evolvement that everything else in this ascension's been. It's not whether it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And you can either try to fall in line with it and follow the flow of it and stay conscious of it, or you can just get dragged, really,
Yes.
because it is, and we've been talking about this since last year, how the body's starting to talk. And people more than
Mhm.
me, I mean, people are talking about it. They're starting to hear their body, respect their body, honor their body. And then when you get right down to it, it follows the same parallel as everything else did, which is this is happening. Yes, some people may not physically uh, remain because they won't be able to handle it. And you're seeing a little bit of that. And I was wondering, in regard to your work environment, because that's like a good little laboratory, right?
Mhm.
With all the stuff that goes on in the world stage, and the degree of focus and power that it steals from people and has from all of us for years, and now we're waking up and putting our attention elsewhere. Is that part of why people approach you, do you think, or is it strictly personal, paranormal slash ET slash dimensional experiences, or weird things happening to them that come and ask you, or is some of it predicated on they're like, what the hell's going on in the world, that type of thing? And maybe I
Yeah.
do need to look at Melissa's viewpoint, because she seems calm and cool and everybody else is tripping balls.
I definitely would agree with that for
Mm,
sure. I think that the veil is just becoming thinner and thinner, and people's eyes are opening, and they're starting to question, like, I don't want to just work to pay my bills. Like
Yeah.
there's a deeper calling in me that I feel like I want to explore, but people don't understand how to interpret their soul's language because it's not going to speak in plain English. But
Hmm.
people are picking up on those signs. And I think that, yeah, the illusion is fading. The illusion is being shattered because I find on a bigger scale, and I think that's why I've remained in this workspace for as long as I have, is it helps to keep me to what's happening on a bigger level,
Yeah.
right? It's a dense place with people that are not um, yet transitioned or awakened. However, in the time that I've been there, I've seen them waking up, and so I'm like, I know this is just a micro to a macro. It's my little like laboratory experiment, like you said, but I understand that's happening on a much bigger scale as
Yeah, but
well.
you have no idea. None of us have any idea how big these portals are that we are and that we're that we're creating. Even if it's
Mm-hmm.
like people like us, we're on the move, and there's a lot of people doing that, and they've had these experiences, or somebody who is in one place. That's a portal. People's homes. That's a portal.
Mm,
That stuff that we're doing is it may look micro, but it's not. I mean, it really is. I mean,
that's
we're going to
very
be able to look
valid.
back at this. We're going to be able to look back at this and really see how big we are. And I think
Yeah.
that's really ultimately what happens, is because it's part of what's happening to us is, um, as we let go of stuff and realize what we're not, and the fears that go with it, there's this one other big fear that starts to look you in the face, which is, do you realize how powerful you are? Do you realize that with your thoughts? I mean, this is not cliche. With your thoughts, that's why it's so important right now to be careful, because like you said, you'll manifest it immediately.
Yes.
I mean, it will come like that. I mean,
Yes.
I'm and I think that's been a big thing uh, these 3 months of this year, right? Has been where people are starting to point the finger less, just go quiet, just stay within themselves and work out everything within themselves, because now we're starting to see how that changes everything outside of us.
That's so valid. I 1000% agree with that. I got like full body goosebumps just like
Mhm.
validating and confirming, like I totally align with that notion. Is even with small things, right? Where I'm at work and I'm wearing like my favorite sweater. It's super comfy. I love how it looks. It's a great color. And I thought to myself, oh, I should put something on to protect this because I don't want to ruin it. And then I walk by something and don't I snag it on something immediately and put a hole in it. And I was like, right, my thoughts are powerful. Don't put it out
Mhm.
there. Like, don't live in fear. You're just going to attract it. And that keeps happening like constantly. And what's really cool is that people are actually seeing it. I find that, these synchronicities will happen to us, but they're happening more in a shared experience,
Mm.
if that makes sense, where
Yeah.
other people are witnessing the synchronicities and the magic too. And they're like, you stop and you make eye contact. You're like, did you see that? You saw
Mm.
that too, right? And it's like a
Mm.
shared experience. It's becoming more interwoven.
Yeah, and I think too, another thing for me, and I don't know if this will help anybody, but for me, like, I walk a lot. I spend a lot of time walking at the beach the previous few days, and I'm having this conversation or connection, because, like you said, it's not really like words. The soul doesn't speak in words all the time. And what I was getting was, pay attention. Like, pay attention. Look closer. You're not just walking past a tree or a bush. And so I was kind of going through this thing, and it's not the first time, but it was a more elevated. And so every sound, I mean, we can say, oh, that was an air condition going off. But what were you what thought were you holding? What epiphany or revelation were you coming to when this sound came on? I mean, it's not a coincidence. They all work together, even though it might look like, oh, that's just a water sprinkler going off at 12 o'clock midnight, when you walked into this circle of all these soul family, as you have your hand clasped with Morgan, you know and they go off at the same time. And then she says, are you ready to walk into the circle? First time it's mentioned, I'm like, I'm already here. Wow, this is weird, and you know what I mean? These things, colors, animals, sounds, the wind, I mean, these are not coincidences. They're all actually, the synchronistic validations that sometimes and most of the time, that's all we're going to get. We're not going to get straight up, textbook, verbalization that we fully understand. That's the human. That's the
That's
human
the
part,
human. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely agree with
It's,
that. Yeah, just a more, everything is just like to me a spiral, and we're just always
mm,
revisiting things. But
mm-hmm.
as we revisit it, it's always with a deeper perspective, a deeper
Yeah.
insight, wisdom, connection, and just like further rooting and anchoring and grounding into that presence where you can, it's not only seeing one synchronicity, it's seeing the synchronicity of all things in your experience unfolding around you with each and every
Mm,
breath, millisecond that happens.
yeah. So what kind of I know you do Reiki, but do you do readings as well? Do you do like sessions? I'm just curious to what type of
I sort of
uh
blend and meld everything.
mm,
So in my Reiki sessions, I'm using um, sound healing,
mm,
aromatherapy, color therapy. I provide channeled intuitive messages throughout
mm.
the session. I love to pull cards. That's been an amazing tool for me personally to have that like physical,
Mm.
immediate validation of what I already know is happening.
Like
Um,
serious. Like
Yes,
serious.
exactly. I was like, of
Yeah.
course, we would bring that up. Right? So it's just like that further validation.
So
But
do
I
you
use
ever
it all.
do you ever like and it's not right or wrong. I'm just wondering because you seem to have a really strong connection. Like I would say a really strong connection or I don't know. It's very much like to me like Morgan's connection. It's very clear. I can see it when you talk. I don't know if it's because we're somehow linked or I don't know. But do you ever like connect in or with two or more and just kind of like combine your field or just open up your field with other people? Do you ever do anything like that? I'm just curious. I mean, whether it's conscious or not, you know what I mean?
I don't think that it's I don't think that it's conscious, or at least I'm deepening my awareness of it. I think it's been very innate and intuitive, and I've just been stepping deeper into those gifts, abilities, and learning how to harness them more intentionally.
Mm,
But a part of what I do with Reiki isn't um, necessarily Reiki. I think that's innately within me, which is opening up my field to mesh with that person. And I actually start to take on um, physical symptoms, and I'll be able to like really pinpoint and feel into what's going on with them. And I know some empaths will have that heightened sensitivity where they can actually feel what other people are feeling. But for me, it goes like a step further where I'm like, no, this is a part of my gifts. I don't feel the need to shield. I don't feel like I'm absorbing it. I
mm,
feel that I'm just connecting on a psychic, physical level that allows me to interpret that person's experience and reflect it back or mirror it back to them for them to be able to do the work more clearly and consciously,
well,
if that
that's
makes
cool.
sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So when you just got over this 6 weeks or so of whatever that was, was it did you well
Intense
we
purging.
yeah, we did the same thing a little over a year ago together. Like she went 13 days, I think I went 17 days. There was a 2 or 3 day overlap, but it was weird because it went like from the root chakra, like the pain was urinary. Yeah, like
Mhm.
UTI. She thought she had a UTI. This was about 14 months ago in Hawaii when we first got there. And then it went into the sacral, and then and it went
That's
all the
how
way
it
up
does
into,
it for me too.
yeah. Is
Yes.
that what
And
happened? Yeah.
I feel it in stages,
Yeah.
absolutely, where it's like I just like feel awful in the sacral, and then I'll feel it in my heart, my throat, and then like get throbbing headaches. But it's like,
Mm,
yeah, that deep cleansing, but it definitely moves in that synchronistic aligned order. It isn't just sporadic like root, third eye,
yeah.
solar. It's like
Yeah.
one after another.
You could
And
feel it
this
come up.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, that happened to me years ago when I had my first astral projection out of body experience, when I like found myself in the heart of the cosmos, and it was so crystal clear. I wanted to stay there. It just felt like
Mm.
pure love. I just felt our collective essence. But that's what had happened is every night before I went to bed, it wasn't a sickness, but the only way I could describe it is that I'd go to sleep and my chakras would be blasted with light
Yeah.
because it just felt like a high vibration. And so it would start from the root and go up. And I was just observing because I was still so new. I was like, I guess we're going to roll with this. But the
Mm.
second it reached my crown and all of my chakras were cleared and open, that's when I had my out of body experience that sort of led me down the rabbit hole.
Wow. Well, and it's interesting too because now we can sit with these things. I remember at 14 months ago, we were just able to. We knew what was happening. Like like 3, 4, 5 years ago, most of us would have been looking for traditional cures and answers and stuff, and that itself is a program, right? I mean, it's so cool because now we can go through experience like that and realize what's happening. Somebody put up a meme yesterday, and they were talking about before you go judge yourself on how, so and so's ascended more than me, or this or that, or they can do this, or they can do telekinesis, or whatever the case is. Look at where you were 10 years ago. Look at where
Mhm.
you were. Like, you know, I don't care who it was, even people that have been awake a long time that come on the show talk about where they were 10 years ago. And even though they were getting high level intel and this and that, there was still a lot of programming in place. So we've really
Mhm.
come a long way. There's no question about it.
Absolutely. And I think that's just the human aspect with that judgment and projection of being like, oh, I'm not as far
Mm.
along as that person or this person. And it's like we are always exactly where we need to be.
Of course. Yeah.
Always, because we're the example for those around us as well. Like I
Yeah.
even have judged myself and being like, why am I not fully in my own spiritual practice yet? And I'm like, oh, it's because I'm anchoring and holding the light in this area that needs it right now. Whereas
Yeah.
if we were just like fully embodying our light body in the flesh, like how many people are going to look at us and be able to interpret that, understand that, and
Yeah.
want to explore that path within themselves? If you're speaking an entirely different language, we have to find that balance and go through every level because we're all teachers, we're all
Yeah.
guides, we're all
I agree.
mirrors, and we need each and every
Yeah.
stage of that evolution.
I totally agree with that. We were talking about this among other things last night, and we were talking about how a lot of people have been talking about, and we've all experienced this whole detachment. It's more than a detachment. It's like a physical, well, from old fam or not old family, but from family and friends, right? From our old lives. And we've all
Mm-hmm.
talked about this, the black sheep, which is really the golden child, now that we're starting to understand it.
Yep.
But and so many people in this community have talked about, oh, they're not awake. And especially now where you've kind of got, for lack of a better term, 3D and 5D, let's just say,
Mm-hmm.
or two different earths or two different conscious, whatever you want to call it. But you're right. If you think about it, first of all, everybody's going to get to the same place. That's
Mm-hmm.
inevitable. In those, like, say those people, like, say in my family, that I can see, like, why can't you come over, and have all that to this side, and why can't you see me for what whatever the case is. But they're still teachers. Every one of these people, we've all come here to assist and teach and aid each other. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got a part, and it may not look like they're at the same dimension you are, whatever the case is, but the truth is, proportionate to that environment, they may be carrying 99% of the light, which it might not look like that to us, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I still say there's a good argument that everybody's beating at the same vibration. It just doesn't look that way. Especially when you
Absolutely.
take the linear out of it, because judgment is so front and center right now. We're all being taken through these, and you can see it in the community. You can see it in the in the mood or the energy of post and videos and what people are saying and so on. And that's not a damning thing. It's not a judgmental thing. I'm just saying you can see people are working through it. And one
Mm-hmm.
day, like you said about the yo-yo, sometimes it's a yo-yo, and that's okay. But we're not judging it. We're not, like biting on it like a dog and not letting go. We're just becoming more of the observer, which is good because that means we're doing it with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's entirely valid. And I think that it all starts with a conversation. People are learning how to communicate. Not only are we moving through life and experiencing it, but we're not like holding on to it anymore. We're not saying, hey, that hurt my feelings or that
Yeah,
felt, wrong to me. Now we're vocalizing it. And it
yeah,
may not be, you know, maybe the most productive seemingly, but it
yeah,
needed to start there because at
yeah,
least the conversation is happening, much like this conversation is happening. It's just happening in different stages of
yeah.
consciousness, but it's all adding to the collective awakening.
That's true. Yeah, and that's a good point too because I know for me it's been it took me a while to figure out, like, okay, so something's said, and to me, let's just say something's done to me. That's not even true, but you know what I mean. And
Yes.
at first you're like, yeah, f that person, like, what's their, and then you go, okay, wait a minute, that's me. And so then you kind of
Mm-hmm.
go through this period of like trying to integrate and equalize it in your heart and so on. And then it made me realize that what you're saying is so true, that when a person speaks their truth, and we're all shadowed, you know what I mean? But I mean, and you can see the intention of their, of their communication. It really takes all the personal stuff out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
you start to see where they're coming from, not by the literal aspect of what they're saying, but by the energy of where they're coming from. It's weird,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it took me a while with this, and I have to like take a step back and say, wait a minute, what's going on with this person?
Yeah.
And Morgan's method of energy work, focusing on myself and balancing it myself, and then everything around me changes and the person changes, but it's really me that
Mm-hmm.
changed. So it's a weird, and I think that's the whole quantum thing. We're not we're getting off this linear thing. We talk about the timeline, the linear timeline, but it's really a linear energy. It's a linear
Mm-hmm.
frequency, and we're actually moving out of it. And this is I think why we have this yo-yo thing going. Morgan said the same thing you did about the spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And there was about a week ago, when the energies were coming in, she goes, I feel like I'm spiraling up and then
Yeah.
spiraling down, spiraling up
Yeah.
and then spiraling down, you know?
Yeah.
But if you think
Absolutely.
about like mixing like pancake mix or something, or anything that, and you can see the different stuff in there, you have to mix it. You have
You
to
gotta
mix it to
stir
get
the
it.
pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's all happening for us. It's really an awesome unfolding, and it's really cool to when you have that deepened awareness that you are me and I
yeah.
am you, and you're just a different aspect, and you're showing me different parts of myself, or I'm able
Yes.
to look into different, past versions of me. Like you're able to like see the multidimensional self really and truly. You could say, wow, I remember when I did that, and it was coming from a place of insecurity. Or you can see when
Yeah.
someone's maybe projecting their own insecurities or whatever the case is. You can just see the level of consciousness clearly, and then you can really free yourself from that judgment to say, this is where you are, and I accept that, and I love that. You're exactly where you need to be. You're working through it. Thank you for being here and doing the work.
Yeah.
um, but everyone's, I feel like, refining their lens to see
Yeah.
the
That
bigger
was
picture.
that was another thing that was weird that happened to me 2 nights ago, because I wear glasses to read or see, right? So I've had my glasses off for like 2-3 hours, right? So when I lay down, and this wasn't the same time when I had that little out of body thing, it was later in the evening, but I was like, open my eyes and it was dark, right? There was light coming in from the windows, and I felt like I had these glasses on, but I didn't have them on it. And it didn't feel like these glasses. I just felt like there was this lens, and I kept like trying to, like, literally trying to take it off. It's funny that you said that. But going back to what you said too, so we walk away from these interactions. And we do have this dialogue, or we do have this going on now. This has been opened up, and this is, they're coming for, that's me I'm looking at. They're coming from wherever they're coming from. But the key for me is now, well, okay, why am I still pissed? Why am I uncomfortable? That's the
Mm.
key, because if that switches, then that they switch. You know, this
Mm.
guy, this really cool brother, and I don't answer many messages, but for some, how they pop up sometimes. I got to get this one. And he said to me yesterday, he said, um, I don't usually talk low, but so and so, who's very well known, just isn't like something's not right. And I said, and I just channeled it. It wasn't Todd. I just went, okay, well, here's where I'm supposed to write, and boom, it's there. And I said, it's not so much what you see in others that you deem separate from yourself. In other words, things we don't like, right? But what about their attributes? What about the attributes of the people that you don't like, or that you don't have in your field? Have you ever thought about the attributes? Now, if you don't think that their negatives are you,
Mhm.
do you think that their positives are? This I just kind of came to me over the last 2, 3 days, and then Morgan and I had a review, and she was kind of coming, and in fact, she put up a post about it, and I was like, "That's it. That's it." We always look at these people and say, "That's not me," because
Mhm.
they're an asshole or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
what about the other side of it? What about all their attributes? I'm
Yeah.
also I'm also distancing myself and separating myself from the things they do well. And
Right.
that was a really big one for me. And I'm still not integrated with it. But for me,
Yeah.
it really bridged something
When
really
you're
solidified.
shielding, when you're feeling the need to shield, you're not only just blocking out the bad, you're blocking out the good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
I totally get
That's some
that.
good. Yeah, and it's so much easier to detect what we don't like. So for me now, like if I don't like something, I'm going to go, okay, there's the red flag. I don't need to focus on what I don't like about them, but what do they do right? What do they do right? Like,
Yes.
you know, and so
Or on
those
the
are,
other end of the spectrum, you could even see, and this is still a practice for me. I'm not perfect, like perfect in this way by any means, but even just looking at the parts that rub us the wrong way to say, okay, a part of me that is unhealed is showing itself to me through this person. And
exactly,
what is that that's being
exactly.
revealed to me in this moment? For me, a lot of the time that comes up is rejection and feeling like I'm not accepted. But then I just
Mm.
see that it's me still not fully accepting
Yeah,
myself. And
yeah,
it's going to show up and externalize in my experience by people not liking me or not appreciating me or not validating me or whatever. And I'm like, oh, wait, it's because I haven't fully been in my power. And how can
yeah.
I align with that deeper and love myself and accept myself and not even worry about if people like me or not?
Mm.
And then the second that that happens, then these people that were, making me feel a certain way are now my friend. And now they like me and now they're talking to me. And I'm like, oh, I just needed to like myself.
Right. And I know we're running over. Just one more topic, because you're oh, we're always like this. So then there's this thing about helping other people, right? Like so and so has a problem. So and so, and we had this old pattern of immediately running over there and call it wounded healer, or I
Mm-hmm.
call it codependent frequency that was
Yeah.
deeply embedded. But so we run over there to help. Say I've got a lot of money, which is not true. Let's say I got $1,000, and there's somebody in trouble over here that I know pretty well, and they need $150, like right now. And this may not be the perfect example, but if I unconsciously just go into that pattern, I immediately uh, can see now where I'm contributing to this codependent frequency, because I'm laying I'm laying some bullshit on this person. And it's not, I don't mean that towards them. I just mean that's the way the pattern worked. It's like, oh my God, I owe you something now. And the
Mm-hmm.
minute that starts, that old codependent frequency goes in. So there's this thing about everybody rows their own boat, but not like to a point where you're just an ass about it. You know what I mean? But there are certain things that we've got to do on our own. And I think that's why there's been so much isolation, so many hermits like you and me and
Mm-hmm.
recluses. But it does look like we're coming out of that now. We're going to be forced to to help people.
Yes.
But yeah, you know what I mean though. That dynamic. That's a conscious part of me now to be aware
Mm-hmm.
of that dynamic and not to be seeding the codependent frequency, even though it's
Right.
from the quote unquote from the heart. You know what I mean?
Yes,
That's what got
absolutely.
us.
Because you're still creating a ripple in the pond. You're still like, you know, running to this person to assist them in whatever means necessary. But then you're still like creating that little bit of resistance rather than just accepting,
Yeah,
right? You might be a part of that scenario as it unfolds. Someone may ask for your assistance, and we're here to help one another. But I think that just our acceptance helps more than anything, because then
yeah,
we're not pushing or pulling, we're not creating a ripple or resistance. We're just holding space for everything as it unfolds, trusting that it's unfolding exactly as it should. And there's no need to really force or will any
right.
part of the experience.
Yeah, force isn't flow. Somebody said on the show the other day, and it was a pretty high vibrational person. I think I can't remember who it was, but they said it's like we're getting kicked out of the nest. You know, we're getting kicked out of the nest, and I think, look, you know, oneness is oneness, so everybody is the same. So if I'm helping somebody fly out of the nest, then I'm disrupting the natural flow. So the natural
Right.
flow is everybody, is the caterpillar to the butterfly or whatever you want to call it. Everybody, you can't. And I remember hearing that 9 years ago when I woke up and I would get these messages and they would say, nobody can miss a step on the soul highway. Nobody can skip a
Mm,
step. And to me, that's what that means. Everybody has to
that's
do it.
valid.
You can't get around
Yeah.
it. You can't shortcut it. You can fast track if you want to, like, go into some intense meditations or processes or whatever, but you can't skip a step. So
No, no
are you
bypassing any part of it.
right? So are you on still big on Instagram? Is that where you
Yeah.
okay? So you're
Yeah,
big
I'm
on.
still, that's pretty much my only active sort of platform right now. I
Hmm.
haven't really been on Facebook too much aside from here to connect with you and all of you
Yeah, right
lovely
on.
people. So I have changed my handle to Blue Flame Healing.
Blue
If
Flame
anyone
Healing.
would like to find me on Instagram, that would be amazing.
Right on. I still need to get on Instagram. I haven't even done it, but that's cool. That's cool. It's good talking to you. I'm glad Morgan found you, and I was kind of surprised when I saw your name. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I wish you the
thank you so
best. And
much.
yeah,
You
keep
as
an eye out for
well.
Franco Di Nicola. I know he's in the area. I'm going to see him today. I'll talk to him about specifically where he's located and send you a note. And
Amazing. Yes, I'll check
yeah,
that out.
because he does some stuff on a local basis that's pretty powerful. He's done it for
I
years.
would love to collaborate with anybody in Toronto. If there's somebody watching that's from Toronto,
Mm.
I have a space for co-creation, and
Well,
I definitely want to connect with people in the physical. I feel like that's where, you know,
yeah,
where we create portals, like you said. So
yeah,
we just
no
amplify
doubt.
that energy.
No doubt, and that's big on the list this year for everybody. It's already happening, and incredible things happen when we come together. Well, you take care.
Absolutely.
Best to you and yours,
Thank
and
you. Thank you. Thank you.
keep on plugging away. Stand tall, and
You
I'll
too.
see you on the next. I'll see you on the next one.
Take care, Todd.
All right, take care, Melissa. All right, we'll see everybody later. We'll be back in 45.